Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here in Leipzig today because it's my first talk in English today. Because the theme I'm talking about is decisions, and for myself, many people say I didn't decide for what I want to be. Am I a comedian? Am I an expert? Maybe both. Maybe we don't have to decide always. But that's what we're talking about now. I'd like to talk about decisions today and why it is so hard for us to decide. Here's how I got the idea for this topic. There was a software development company that opened up right across from where I live, and their slogan being the following: you need to know all the options to make the best decision. I thought to myself, is that really true? Do I really need to know all the options to decide? Why do I need to know all the options, and why do I have to make the best decision? Most of the time, I'd be happy to make any decision at all. Certain professional groups would clearly disagree. Firefighters, paramedics, those are the ones who make decisions intuitively, based on a rule of thumb. They exclude options. Less is more. When they see a victim lying on the side of the road screaming, "Help, I'm bleeding to death," a proper paramedic isn't going to go over to the victim to try and help, because he's thinking, that guy's screaming. That means that guy's alive. First and foremost, intuition is recognition. It's based on experience. The more we've experienced, the easier it is to make decisions. So that's the reason why there's good and bad intuition. Let's take a look on both. If you drive the same way to work every single day, a lot of things on the way will happen very intuitive. A football referee once explained to me how he can recognize a foul during a header within a fraction of a second. He doesn't pay attention to the ball or its movement. It's much rather the eyes of the players involved in the header. If they are both looking at the ball, they haven't fouled. If one of them looks away, however, and looks the other player in the eye, he's usually gonna foul. That's good intuition. A classic example of bad intuition is Donald Trump. All his decisions are made intuitively. In all the retaliatory strikes on Syria, he had seen images that triggered him. He spoke of beautiful babies he had seen, and off he went. So far, he has been just about as interested in international law, international treaties, and 500,000 deaths in Syria as the Rolling Stones have been seriously interested in finally retiring. So Trump is in fact what you might call a geopolitical dyslexic. We got a glimpse of this during our Chancellor's inaugural visit to the White House, when Trump claimed that both he and Merkel were victims of wiretapping during Barack Obama's presidency. That was when Merkel gave us what may be the most beautiful facial expression of her entire career as Chancellor.
At least we have something in common, perhaps.
Now that right here, that expression was an example of good intuition from Merkel. That was killing with a single look. Total destruction in merely 2 seconds. Actors have to study years for that. Trump has no experience, doesn't seem to be interested in politics, yet he decides intuitively. And that is why there's a new red button in the Oval Office. When Trump pushes it, an attendant will bring him a Coke. But right beside is the other red button, Coke or war. That is the geopolitical alternative for the 21st century. World peace, depending on a tweeting bonehead's need for a soda pop. Speaking of which, as a gift for Trump's first anniversary in office, you maybe recognize that, one of the Twitter employees decided to deactivate Trump's account on his last day at work. If you ask me, this guy is the Stauffenberg of the digital age. And if you don't know Stauffenberg, ladies and gentlemen, that's the guy who played Tom Cruise in Operation Valkyrie. So, as you can see, good decisions can go wrong. Better yet, they are only truly horrific when combined with the right amount of experience. I found out just how hard that is when my laptop broke. I said to myself, go to a computer store, you have all the options and be able to make the best decisions. So there I was, faced with 122 laptops from Acer, Toshiba, Sony, and Acer's 53 Ultrabooks and a dozen netbooks, 18 Macs and 66 tablet, equipped with i3, i5 or i7 processors, matte or glossy Full HD, with 14, 15, 16, 17 or 18-inch displays, with or without an Ultra Bay slot, with Gorilla Glass, super light, extremely light, and twistable, adjustable, expandable, and finally, ignorable. Let's buy some water, I thought to myself, sparkling water, same as always. But then there's also medium, still, and spring water. Damn it, the active line comes in citrus grapefruit, pink grapefruit, tropical, and energy. So that is active energy. If that were referring to children, we'd be speaking ADHD right here. Moving along to the drugstore, I'm certainly glad I'm not a woman. More than 100 different kinds of lipsticks and around 500 types of shampoo, hair mousse, and facial cream. Even shampoo offers for just about any and every minority. Energy, anti-hair breakage, anti-hair damage, color gloss, volume, magic oil, Nutri-Gloss, Nutri-Gloss Crystal, volume collagen ever rich, repair extreme, must be shampoo for jihadists, intense smooth, probably for the facelifted, total repair 5. I asked myself, what happened to 1 through 4? And revitalizing shampoo, this must be shampoo for the dead. But all I ever wanted in life was this shampoo right here. That's enough. Shampoo that cleans hair. But we don't really want that because we want options. But when we have the options, we have to compare. And then we don't know what to do. I am forced to compare everything everywhere today. When it's time for a holiday, I have to compare plane and train tickets, train and bus tickets, plus buses and rental cars, not to mention hotels and apartments. The whole of life is one big comparison. When we were born, it used to be paperwork, forms, forms, forms for the rest of our days. Now it's come to this, compare, compare, compare from cradle to grave. In the end, I chose a laptop that the computer store didn't have. I asked a friend. That often helps. If you get too many options, just ask someone who knows more than you do. And what I get now is a Windows laptop. During my search, a lot of people said to me, you're ready for a Mac. But I don't want to be ready for a Mac. I've witnessed firsthand what that has led to with my friends. They bought a Mac only to then install the entire Microsoft Office package. Damn, you don't do that. You don't install Office on a Mac. It's like putting Ritz cheese spray on a saltine cracker. It just doesn't work. At this point, I can say I am happy with my choice. But in the beginning, I wasn't. But that was my fault, though. Me, I'm an optimizer, the optimizer. There are two kinds of decision makers, optimizers and chillers. What's that all about? Optimizers always want the best of everything. They usually get it, but that does not stop them from looking. That's why, in the end, they are even more satisfied, unsatisfied. Chillers, on the other hand, get things that are simply okay, but they're oh so happy with it, you'd think they'd gotten the absolute best. Barry Schwartz describes an experiment where psychologists put up 2 tasting tables in a deli. One table offered 24 jars of jam, the other 6. The result? The table with 24 jars had more visitors. The table with only 6 sold 10 times as many jars. The point being, more options does not mean better options. The more options you have, the more chances you have to make a bad decision and fail. So can we really rely on our intuition in complicated situations like these? Shouldn't we be skeptical? Why don't we go ahead and learn from those who make decisions for a living? Many so-called leadership personalities are afraid of decisions. That's why they seek self-affirmation. And that you can easily recognize Once you take a look at the employees they surround themselves with, they'll have the same mindset as they do. They'll wear the same clothes, listen to the same music, go to the same clubs. They'll even talk the same way their boss talks. First of all, the need for self-affirmation is totally human. We all want to believe, not doubt, which explains the great success of all world religions, just as well as that of push-up bras. By the way, I never would have thought I'd manage to fit religion and bras in one sentence. That's why you should always listen to your intuition when it comes to job decisions. But first, think, don't feel. Think about it. Where will this job or employee get you in, say, 1, 5, or 10 years? And then ask your intuition, your gut. And make sure you have people around who will challenge you. More annoying constant question askers and less affirming brown nosers. Because if we all ever do is affirm ourselves, if all we ever do is affirm ourselves, we will eventually overestimate ourselves. And overconfidence leads to the biggest mistakes. Without a position, the 3 biggest decision-making mistakes will forever be stuck on repeat. The hubris of poor planners, the poor planning of the overconfident, and them hugging themselves with pleasure for having realized very poor plans. Coming from Berlin, I have just one question. How many airports could have been built by now? The more options we have, the more difficult it is to decide. We have got to learn how to be independent again, because we are breaking ourselves loose of just that. As always, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It is called nudging, what I'm talking about now. It is from the USA and meant to help us make better decisions. Let me tell you a story. The other day, I was in a restroom. Not what you think now, I was all by myself. In a public urinal, to be exact. All I wanted was to pee. And there it was, a fly in the urinal, and I couldn't help myself. I simply needed to wet that insect. I transformed that urinal into an ego shooter. That's it, our evolutionary state. Men who aim at insects. I call it assisted peeing, ladies and gentlemen. Behavioral scientists found out that that way there is less spraying. Like when the fruit in the cafeteria is at eye level, while the candy is at the bottom. We, the modern people, are overwhelmed, we're disoriented and in need of help. So naturally, we need to be told what's best for us. Soon we'll have helmet requirements for bike riders. Then come the helmet requirements for pedestrians who want to cross the street. There will then be a shift worker at the crosswalk renting out the helmets for $1 and help us crossing the street. The Google cafeterias in the USA decided to do this, use smaller plates so employees would eat less without noticing it. And that's exactly where nudging turns into paternalism and manipulation. Why do we automatically assume people don't know what's good for them? Your coworkers could always just give you a little nudge to help. You know, a small plate would have been more than enough for you. If every decision is made for you at a certain point, you won't be able to decide anymore. And that leads to fear. Fear of everything. Fear of failure. And fear is a terrible advisor for good decisions. But maybe that's simply what fear amounts to. Everyone is afraid these days. Afraid of terror attacks, afraid of refugees, afraid of terrorist refugees. The probability of falling victim to a terror attack performed by a refugee in the United States is 1 to 3.65 billion. In Germany, you are 4,000 times more likely to die from the flu than by the hands of a terrorist, and 2,000 times more likely when doing jobs around the house, for that matter. Now there's something to be afraid of. How does fear develop? It's not in the moment the danger arises when a pit bull attacks you. All you've got are your reflexes, fight or flight. In the event of a pit bull attack, it had better be flight. Fear develops way earlier, when we're not sure what will happen next. Will there be another terror attack? The things we cannot process rationally have a stronger emotional effect, meaning we're afraid of what will not kill us. The Germans' biggest fear is that of burglaries. Last year in Germany, there were about 116,500 cases of breaking and entering. So statistically speaking, each German home is victim to a burglary less than every 130 years. Meaning that if you're seriously afraid of getting robbed more than twice in your life, you must strongly believe in reincarnation. Then there's those many people afraid of hormones and antibiotics in meat, when yet actually both are only responsible for fairly few cases of cancer. Whereas, on the other hand, every year 70,000 Germans die too young due to an unhealthy lifestyle. They drink too much, smoke too much, don't work out enough. They take risks they aren't even aware of, simply because they are part of everyday life. In Germany, you can find about 700 radicalized Islamists. And I tell you this, before they manage to make away with 7,000 obese Germans, the 72 virgins will descend from heaven voluntarily to deliver them. After 9/11, many Americans switched to driving because they were afraid every other plane would fly into a skyscraper. Now that did not happen. What did happen was that in the year following the attack, there were 1,600 more casualties on the streets than in any of the previous years. We long for safety, yet choose the unsafe danger. Each year, 1,000 Germans die from ingested foreign bodies. They swallow things that are not meant to be jammed down your throat. Estimates say that 500 of those 1,000 foreign bodies are fish bones. If we're going to win the war against terror, this is the enemy we've got to fight. That's why there is one sentence I don't even want to hear again. We need to take people's fears seriously. It just doesn't make any sense. No good therapist focuses on the fear itself. They focus on how to solve it. A therapist would try to show you ways to cope with your fears or overcome them, but they won't take them seriously. If my fears would have always been taken seriously, I never would have learned to walk. I never would have gotten on a bike. And as a German comedian and speaker, I definitely never would have driven to Leipzig on this fine day in June to hold a talk in English the first time. So, is having all the options truly better? Do we really need to know them all? Sometimes less is more. In conclusion, a few practical tips. The first, the smaller and more common the decision, the less information you need. The bigger, more important and long-ranged, the more information you need. When you're planning on buying that shampoo we spoke of, and it doesn't match your expectations, the financial loss is minimal. You just buy a different one. For laptops, cars, or houses, it's a bit more complicated. If you spend a large 3- or even 4-digit amount and are then unsatisfied, that hurts. Second one, be less afraid of regret. We're scared of making the wrong decision. But that is the wrong conclusion. We don't regret wrong decisions, we regret the decisions we didn't make. The third one, make mistakes, allow other people to make them too. It is shown time and time again, when people are not allowed to make mistakes, that's exactly what they do, make mistakes. But when people are allowed to do it, they make fewer mistakes. When you want to have all the options, you won't be able to make the best decision. The more options we have, the more mistakes we make. So the fourth and last tip. We need to revive the good old principle of nature, try and error. In our society, those trials are canonized, while the errors are merely sanctioned. What we need is a new culture of failure. When you fail, you must be done away with, quarantined, so you don't infect anyone else. And when I speak of culture of failure, I don't mean failure as an opportunity. That would mean forever being stuck in the rat race. What I mean is failure as a chance to get to know ourselves better. Trial and error. So just try and fail. Try again, fail again. Try harder, fail better. Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen.